Breaking news! Los Angeles Rams fans are counting down the hours until the start of the season. And that's not all. This Tuesday, a controversial topic came to light. Yes, my friends, we're going to talk about a possible return of Aaron Donald. Could it actually be viable? I'm about to tell you all the details. But before that, make sure you've already hit the like button. Only do it if you believe Aaron Donald is an excellent player and if you think he would make a difference in the Rams' chances of reaching the Super Bowl. Either way, write this in the comments. Go Rams! Let's go! Well, my friends, the possibility of Aaron Donald returning to the Los Angeles Rams in 2026 has become one of the most talked-about topics surrounding the organization. And based on the information circulating behind the scenes, expectations are growing about whether one of the greatest players in franchise history could make one more appearance in a Rams uniform. What makes this situation particularly fascinating is that the conversation is no longer limited to fan speculation. Several figures connected to the organization have spoken publicly about the matter, creating a level of discussion that continues to gain momentum. One of the main questions surrounding a possible return is the financial aspect. While many fans immediately think about contracts and salary cap implications, the discussion surrounding Donald's situation suggests that the financial side may not be the biggest obstacle. According to the information being reported, Aaron Donald still has a contract with the Rams, even after his retirement. The explanation given is that NFL contracts do not simply disappear when a player retires, which means there are still contractual considerations tied to his situation. However, the expectation is that if Donald were to return, it would not be under the same financial structure that currently exists. The reasoning behind that is straightforward. The conversation points out that a 35-year-old Aaron Donald would not be expected to return under a massive $30 million arrangement. Instead, the belief is that both sides would likely work toward a restructuring that would make sense for the team and for Donald himself. The argument presented is that Donald does not necessarily need that type of financial commitment at this stage of his career, and the Rams would need flexibility considering other roster obligations already in place. The Rams are already managing their available resources, and attention was drawn to the fact that rookie contracts still require attention. Although some progress has reportedly been made with members of the rookie class, there are still financial commitments that need to be accounted for. As a result, any potential Aaron Donald return would need to fit within a realistic framework. Yet, the overall message remains clear. Money may not be the factor that ultimately determines whether Donald returns. That brings us to what may be the more intriguing discussion, the football side of the equation. If Aaron Donald were to return in 2026, what would he actually look like on the field? This is where expectations become extremely important. The discussion surrounding a possible comeback emphasizes that fans should not expect to see the exact same player who dominated offenses during the peak years of his career. Time affects every athlete, regardless of greatness, and Donald would be returning at 35 years old. The belief expressed is not that Donald would suddenly stop being effective. Rather, it is that his role would naturally evolve. Instead of being asked to handle the overwhelming workload that defined much of his prime, Donald would likely be utilized in a more specialized role. The conversation highlights the idea that he would become part of a pass rush rotation, rather than serving as a full-time every-down defender. This approach would allow him to maximize his impact while also protecting his body from the constant punishment that comes with a full NFL season. The expectation is that Donald would spend more time working from the interior of the defensive line. The reasoning behind this projection is that while age can affect speed and explosiveness on the edge, power and technique remain valuable assets inside. Donald built a reputation on strength, leverage, intelligence, and relentless effort, and those traits could still allow him to be an effective contributor in key situations. Another interesting aspect of the discussion involves how he would fit within the current defensive structure being described. Kobe Turner is mentioned as a major figure in the rotation and is projected as a leading presence among the pass-rushing defensive tackles. The expectation is that Turner would continue handling a significant workload. In this scenario, Donald would complement rather than replace the existing foundation. The focus would be on placing him in situations where he could attack opposing quarterbacks and create pressure without being required to carry the same snap count that once defined his career. Braden Fisk is also discussed as part of the rotation, with attention given to his ability to contribute in pass-rushing situations. The overall picture being painted is one of a defensive front that could rotate multiple talented players while keeping everyone fresh. Donald would not need to be the centerpiece of every snap. Instead, he could become a strategic weapon deployed when the Rams need disruption the most. The conversation does not stop there. Ty Hamilton is another player mentioned as someone expected to maintain a role even if Donald were to return. Rather than eliminating opportunities for younger contributors, the projected setup would still leave room for development and participation across the defensive line. This point is significant because it shows that a Donald comeback is being viewed less as a complete restructuring of the defense and more as the addition of a highly experienced contributor who can elevate an already talented group. When discussing run defense, the expectation shifts even further away from the version of Donald that fans remember from earlier years. The belief presented is that obvious rushing situations might not be where Donald is utilized most heavily. Instead, attention is given to players such as Poona Ford, Tyler Davis, and Tim Keenan, who are discussed in connection with handling responsibilities against the run. The implication is that Donald's value would be concentrated in situations where his pass-rushing ability could create the greatest impact. All of this leads to an important reality check. A potential Aaron Donald return would not be about recreating the past. It would be about adapting greatness to a different stage of a remarkable career. That distinction matters because expectations often shape reactions. If fans expect the Aaron Donald of several years ago, disappointment becomes possible regardless of how productive he actually is. But if expectations are built around a veteran contributor who can still affect games in critical moments, the conversation changes dramatically. The discussion repeatedly emphasizes the importance of understanding why Donald retired in the first place. Retirement was not a random decision. It came after years of physical demands, preparation, recovery, and constant competition against elite athletes. Returning would require a willingness to once again embrace those challenges. That is why the most important question may not be whether he can play. The most important question may be whether he wants to play. Several comments highlighted during the discussion point directly toward that issue. One of the strongest signals comes from comments attributed to Les Snead. According to the discussion, Snead indicated that Donald may be tempted for the first time since stepping away from the game. The wording is significant because it suggests a shift in mindset. Rather than dismissing the possibility outright, the conversation now centers on whether the desire to return is growing. Snead's comments also touch on an important aspect of Donald's personality. The belief expressed is that Donald would only consider returning if he genuinely believed he could help the team. That perspective aligns with the image of a player who built his reputation on excellence and accountability. The suggestion is that Donald would not return simply for attention or nostalgia. If he comes back, it would be because he believes he can make a meaningful difference. Another voice brought into the conversation is Eric Weddle. Weddle's perspective carries weight because he experienced his own return after retirement. During the discussion, Weddle addressed both the physical demands and the mental challenge involved in stepping back onto the field. His comments paint a vivid picture of the toll that football can take on the body, even for elite competitors. He described the pain associated with returning and the reminder it provided regarding why retirement happens in the first place. Yet despite those challenges, Weddle also expressed confidence that Donald possesses the physical and mental traits necessary to handle such a return. The central theme of Weddle's remarks mirrors the larger discussion. The question is not capability. The question is desire. Can Aaron Donald still compete? The belief presented is yes. Can Aaron Donald still contribute? Again, the answer appears to be yes. The uncertainty lies elsewhere. Does he want to devote himself once again to the demands of an NFL season? Does he want to commit to the preparation, the recovery, the meetings, the practices, the travel, and the physical punishment that come with professional football? Those are the questions that only Donald can answer. What makes this story even more compelling is the growing perception that there is more discussion around a potential Donald return than there has been at any point since his retirement. Multiple individuals connected to the organization have publicly commented on the topic. References to conversations involving Sean McVay, Les Snead, Michael Brockers, Pat McAfee, and Eric Weddle all contribute to a sense that the possibility is being taken seriously. That does not guarantee anything. It does not confirm a return, but it does explain why so many Rams fans continue to monitor every development. The discussion ultimately reaches a clear opinion. Aaron Donald is expected to return, but not immediately. The belief expressed is that if a comeback happens, fans should not anticipate it during the early portions of the offseason. Instead, attention should remain focused on the months ahead, when circumstances may become clearer and decisions may become more concrete. For now, the story remains one of possibility. A legendary player, a franchise he knows well, a fan base watching closely. Questions about finances have been discussed. Questions about role and usage have been debated. Questions about physical readiness have been explored. And now everything appears to come down to one final question: whether Aaron Donald decides that he wants one more chapter. Rams fans, what do you think about all of this? Do you believe Aaron Donald will return in 2026? And if he does, what kind of impact do you think he could have in a rotational role on the defensive line? If you enjoyed this coverage, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and click on the video on your screen. The latest Rams developments and breaking stories are the ones you will find here first.